Now up to item number 8, which is the report of the electoral officer on the elections. And Joe is, no, Helen's got this.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies, the electoral officer is unwell, so I'll do my best to answer any questions.
So just what I'd like to say, that we're just receiving this information, and questions that Councillor Johansson has raised yesterday afternoon have been noted for the report in 2023.
That's correct. Report regarding the voting and participation in these elections will be sent in 2023.
Thank you very much. Right, do we... Well, Yanni's got a question?
I mean, we've just had a deputation this morning, or a public participation. There's serious issues that people have raised about access to being able to vote. Just wanted to know, in terms of the report back in 2023, if any work is going to be done between now and then to ascertain community views on what could be done to improve voter participation and turnout.
That's not a matter I can answer right now.
Right. So is anyone able to, it's pretty fundamental in my view. We've had a public participation this morning. We've got a by-election coming up. I guess the concern is the longer we leave it, the less relevant the information is because of the delay.
What I can say is that there is an inquiry undertaken after every local government election, which hasn't yet been completed, that provides national information, and that will be available to you by the time your report comes back.
So I understand that, because we've made submissions to that just about every term that I've been elected to council, and almost nothing has changed and nothing has improved. But what we can do locally around things like voting locations, where people can do specials, etc., based on what we've just heard this morning, is there any, what would be the process to get that work underway to engage the community over what we might be able to do for that 2023 report? Is that something I should just wait until December? But I'm just mindful, if we wait until December to do anything on it, then we've got the whole Christmas holidays and we don't have much time.
Well, there is a report coming to us in very early next year. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay.
Okay. Well, I'll move an amendment or an additional resolution then.
Hang on, I've got Tim's question first.
So we've got our report coming after in the new year, and we've got a national overview of the election system. Yes. So that's coming in the new year as well?
I don't have a date for that, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Okay, but the time frame for that's usually a few months after the election. Yeah, but I think that we should get the information before we go forward on anything else. It seems ridiculous to start a third process when we've already got a report coming to us and there's a national report with an overview. So I'm quite happy to second. Someone else moved it, so I'm quite happy to second.
No, so I've got Pauline to move it and Sam's said he's going to second it. So, is there any debate? Thank you, Yanni.
So I just wanted to move an additional resolution, and it's not to put additional work on staff. It's simply what I think we would do anyway as part of this report, and that is that council asks staff to seek community views on what can be done to improve participation and voter turnout as part of the returning officer report back in 2023. So it's just making it explicit that we will talk to our community as part of developing that report, which I would hope that we would do anyway, but I think it would be good just to record it. The reason for putting that is that, it seems to me that, and I know this council over the last few terms hasn't really wanted to get an in-depth understanding of what could be done to improve it, but it's very clear that there's huge obstacles that have been put in place. Just the removal of post boxes, the ability for people to special vote does have an impact. I represent an area that has one of the lowest voter turnouts in terms of the wards in the city, and it's completely disheartening that this council is not doing more to understand what it can do to improve how people can participate both in the elections and in terms of voter turnout. But there are a number of barriers that have been put in place because of things that have happened. The Justice and Electoral Select Committee process will take up to 2 years. We've been through that process on numerous occasions. It is not a solution to addressing the local things. Other councils have done a lot more than what we've done as an organisation, and it would be good to hear from our community about what things that they think we can do to improve, and we've just heard an example of that this morning. So I don't think this resolution takes away from the report. I think it simply adds to it and just gives an understanding that we do expect some engagement around what the solutions may be.
So Yanni's got a amendment that he's obviously happy to move. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll put a question on.
Before we go any further, I just want to know.
What's the financial implication of that, and our staff, do we have the capacity to do that? It's probably for the Chief Executive to answer that one, I'd say.
I can't answer the question in terms of the financial implications because I've just heard the issue. And in relation to, I'm assuming Councillor Johansson is wanting that engagement to happen before the report comes back to Council, is that correct?
What we would do, we would judge something up around our significance policy, and then we would decide whether we, what sort of levels of views we would seek. I would have thought it something as fundamental as voter participation and engagement, you would actually want to seek the views of people as part of that, developing that report. But I couldn't get an answer today on whether we were going to do that or not, which is why I'd rather err on the side of having it recorded so that we do have an expectation on it.
It's just capacity really is what I'm questioning, that it may delay the report. We don't have the information.
Correct. If you remember, like last term, we set up a whole party. We had a whole report plan with a whole bunch of things we were going to do to engage with that communities. So I don't think this would be a costly thing, given that we've actually got a framework that we can actually engage.
Well, perhaps we could circulate that report that's already been done for interest.
So I'm just seeking advice of my officer, Lynn.
So I think it's important to put on the record that Christchurch's participation rate actually increased in this past election as it has in the previous election. So I'm not saying that it's where it needs to be, but I think we need to start with what the current situation is. In relation to seeking input from members of the community, that will require a level of additional staff, time and resource in order to do it in the right way with the right representation. So this is not necessarily a cost-free approach. What we would need to do is assess how much it would cost and how we could get the best possible information, given that there is a Christmas New Year period. So it's not just about resources, it's also about timing. My suggestion would be that we assess how much resource and cost it would incur before making a commitment to councillors to undertaking that action.
Thank you, Lynn. I'd just like, Tyler had a question first, sorry. Sorry.
We're practically interchangeable.
You got 15 years
But you did have a question. You did have a question.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I'm 16 years older than Tyler. I agree with the sentiment of what Yanni's asking for, but I'm sort of a bit careful about jumping straight to solutions when, as Tim pointed out, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So I guess, okay. So
Are you debating or questioning?
Okay.
So I guess the question is like, can we put something up there that I think we can that doesn't bind us to a whole bunch of activity by staff. Yeah.
So could we?
That's pretty much
guys, are we in debate or are we asking questions? So I just want to
Filling questions.
Yeah, I appreciate I was arguing rather than asking a question.
So the question for Tim is the question for Phil. could we potentially amend that a wee bit just to say, council would like, if it is possible, to consult with the community, and that gives Lynn and the team the ability to actually maybe include it if they can in terms of the reports. So it's kind of like you're saying, not jumping to the solution, but talking about the intent.
May I suggest that we include that in the report that comes back early in the new year, and if it includes further consultation, we will include that at that point. It may be that it's a two-stage process. Could I suggest that? Because this is a report about the results from the last election.
Correct. Okay, Sarah.
Yeah, along those lines, when the next report comes back, it would be really good if there was something that was a piece of work to happen that isn't just a seeking community views, it's a getting staff to investigate the barriers to participation and a plan to increase participation at the next election. That kind of bit more holistic, and that way it can capture national data that's already been collected and a range of other bits and pieces.
There is a lot of information already available on a global scale. This is a global as well as a national and a local issue.
Yeah, and there'll be some local stuff about, where the sites are and those kind of things for people to actually go to, as well as incorporating the broader information. But when the next report comes back, if that was one of the sort of recommended ways forward, to investigating the barriers to participation and things.
So I think that's a sensible question. I think it's something that absolutely should be in the report anyway.
Yeah.
And Helen has made a note of that.
It probably was going to be in the report anyway.
This is actually out of scope for this report anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we
So-
do want to make sure that there are enough
So
in-person
we've heard
places
the-
for the by-election, though.
So we've heard
Yeah.
the request.
Correct. It is. So what's the next step here?
So is there a seconder for Councillor Johansson's?
Thank you, Aaron.
As it's read, presumably.
Okay. So now, do we?
On first.
Okay.
To see the members' views.
Well, now it can be debated.
Yes,
So
that's right.
debate.
So we've got a mover and a yeah, we've got a mover and a second for Yanni's amendment. Have we got any debate? Thank you, Tim, and then Sarah.
Yeah, look, this is, for me, cart before the horse. There's been some really good suggestions to add to the report when it comes to us, but do keep in mind that we increased our voter turnout, which is a really, really good thing in the face of where it's been going the last couple of elections. So I will not be supporting this, and I'll be waiting for the report. And hopefully the information that the questions have added to what the content of the report, which I'm sure was already going to be there, will help us move forward.
Thank you, Tim. Sarah.
Thanks. I think Yanni's right in that if we really value democracy and voter participation, we really need to be looking at what those barriers are and trying to remove the barriers to participation. And while we did increase participation a little bit this time, that was, I think, led by the type of election that we were having with the mayoral campaign, that kind of stuff, which we haven't had recently. And there was a huge amount of media focus that we haven't had in the past as well. I don't think it's the right resolution for this report, but I do think that we need to be looking more closely at removing those barriers. What we tend to find is that participation is from some areas and not others, not just geographically, but when we get to communities of interest and stuff as well, and many don't participate. And I think that we need to be focused in that, not just geography. I think that we do need to look or give some sort of direction or some actions for the electoral officer for the by-election and making sure that there are enough sites. It was great to see Wellington have every supermarket with a chained up drop box for their ballot papers, all of those kind of things, making it easier at this point too. And it'd be nice to trial it maybe this time. Thanks.
Okay. Jake, and then
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment as well. I think that, I think everyone around this table is really keen to see voter participation lift, and particularly ballot boxes in supermarkets is a no-brainer. But this is simply us receiving, information and confirming election results. So I don't think this is actually that appropriate. And I also feel that actually seeking community views, while we will of course do that, how you do that's going to be really important, because if we were just to put this up on the have your say, what we're going to get is the people that religiously vote in local body elections, the people for whom there is no barrier to participating. So I'm not sure that this resolution actually does the right thing.
Thank you, Jake. Tyler, and then Tyrone.
I actually agree with Jake quite strongly in regards to when we're talking about seeking community views. It's actually very biased, because the way that it's been happening in the past 3 years is exactly the same way that we're going to be seeking it. So what I'd recommend with elected members and with staff is, since elected members are saying we need to push the voter quota up, but we're not actually going to participate in the public meetings, that's something that I'm actually more keen to do. Get into the community, obviously before election year. Not to actually be a part of the community and go into those places that we know so well, because that's where we're really going to get the real voice. If we just go out and have your say, for example, that's not going to be a really relevant case in regards to this report. So therefore I'd like to be a doer personally, go out into the community and actually talk to the people that we know, and we all are here, we know our communities, and get the real voice face to face, kanohi ki te kanohi. Something that's really valuable, in my opinion.
Good, thank you, Tyrone.
Again, what I do, Yanni, I do support the sentiment. I mean, I would absolutely love to see increased voter participation, as we've all said. I'd love to see Banks Peninsula get above 61%, which would be fantastic. But I think this is the wrong resolution for what we're trying to do. It's jumping to conclusions or jumping to solutions very quickly, and it's kind of it's not kind of part of a broader coherent approach to the problem that we're trying to solve. But like, I absolutely applaud Yanni for raising it, and but I won't be supporting the resolution based on I think it's the wrong thing to ask.
Andre.
Yeah, I do feel there is a need to seek out some views very fresh after the election. A lot of people who speak to you can't actually remember who they voted for. So to ask them in a year's time or 2 years' time what the barriers were, they may not remember what happened when they got their voting papers. So I think there is a real need to do it very, very soon. Voter turnout increased ever so slightly, still very similar to the last time. As we picked up on, most councils had voter drop-off boxes in supermarkets, dairies, all sorts. We just simply didn't have that. I can't get my head around why that is. I'm sure there's reasons, but I'm not sure what they are at this stage in time. So I'll be supporting Yanni's resolution. I think we need to get some sort of community views involved as soon as possible. That doesn't mean we can't do a more thorough consultation like Tyler has mentioned down the track as well, which absolutely needs to happen. But we need to seek out some views while this is fresh in people's mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And then
Celeste. Yeah, I sort of wasn't going to, but because I thought we were probably in agreement that I think the intent of what Yanni is saying is bang on, but actually the ability for it to be delivered isn't really practical. So I think people shouldn't get lost in this, is that we don't want to hear from the community. We absolutely do. But actually, if you look at the intent of the report, we're literally receiving election results, and there's work going to be done. So I would just hate for anyone out there to get the impression that we actually don't want to listen to the community on this. But the other point that I think has been probably missed in this a wee bit is actually the fact that we're sitting around a table debating our own election results. Fundamentally, this is something that the council shouldn't have responsibility for. We should look at how we can help participation, but it should be driven from a central sort of point of view. So I think we shouldn't get lost on how we, I'd be quite worried if we were going to determine what supermarkets we put voting ballot papers in or boxes in. Fundamentally, that should be driven out of a central place like general elections. So we shouldn't get lost on it that we all, I think, want higher turnout, but I would hate for anyone to get the impression that if this amendment fails today, we don't want to hear from the community.
Celeste?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I'm a little bit on the fence. I think the intention is right, and I think we could overcomplicate it by saying that it has to be quite a comprehensive survey, when actually we could do quite a simple poll and actually ask. There can be simple things that we do to improve voter participation. I mean, we know that 4 out of 10 people are voting currently, and actually, while that might be a slight improvement, it's not good enough. General elections have 8 out of 10, so obviously we need to make, as a country, bigger changes. And I agree with Sam's comment. Councils shouldn't be managing these. However, we also need to do small changes now. We need to do whatever we can. So I will be supporting this resolution, and I trust that staff will come back and provide an appropriate response that can be delivered in a way that will be helpful for making some improvements. So, I'll be supporting this.
And Yanni, Pauline, and you're last, Yanni, because you're the... Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't going to speak to this either, I was going to vote against it for the reasons that have been clearly outlined, but until Celeste spoke, referring to other ways like a simple poll, I would definitely support something like that as a beginning step. But because that's not captured in the resolution, I'm going to abstain on this today.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm happy to support it. That's why I seconded it. But it just says seek community views. Yanni hasn't dictated how in-depth that is or isn't. It's just seek community views. And the debate has highlighted the reason why I've seconded this resolution is, what about the stuff we don't know? Why do 60% of people not vote? Why are we not just asking a simple question? If you didn't vote, tell us why. It's just simple. There will be ideas out there and solutions out there none of us at this table think of. That's why those people don't vote. And in the ward of Harewood, I'd worked with my fellow community board members. We had a goal of getting our voter turnout from 40% to 50%, and we missed out by 0.5%. We had a plan on getting people out to vote, and it worked, so it can work in other places. And probably our ward alone was what kept the council from not slipping into being one of the declining councils, because a nearly 20% increase in one ward would do that, as much as Tyrone's by far ahead in a completely different universe. But that's being exponential.
Thank you and Yanni, please.
So, we're now nearly at the end of November. I've sent you around a previous report from the returning officer. This council used to actually get the report into the election in the same month as the election in October that gave an outline of voter turnout around things that the council did to encourage participation. And, for several terms now, we've stopped having that practice where we suddenly just receive the figures, but we don't get any analysis of why people are voting or not voting and what's being done to encourage it. So I cannot see what the harm is. For people to say that we're doing something that we've done the same and we'll get the same outcome just is not true. It is not true. This council has gotten worse at understanding what's happening in our local body elections over the past several terms than it did in 2007 and 2010. The reality is that there is absolutely a wide range of ways in which we seek community views, and for people that may not be aware of the Local Government Act, the emphasis is really on ensuring that people have information in a timely manner that enables them to best contribute and to participate. So seeking community views is incredibly wide open to staff or the organisation using the best tools it sees as getting the views from the people that are most impacted. So I don't think it's this big risk that we're suddenly going to be asking staff to spend millions of dollars on doing something that's very formal. We have a wide range of mechanisms that we can use, and we've used some of those for things like the stadium and things like yellow lines on roads and a whole wide range of things that we can do to get views. That's not just about hearing from the same people, but is actually about connecting with people that we may not be hearing from. But I would encourage you to support this. This is a simple request based on the fact that over the last few terms, that this council, when it's received the voting report, has not had an in-depth analysis of what's being done. And leaving it until the new year and possibly, 6 months to a year away from when the elections happened, I think you just lose valuable information. The best time to understand and seek views from the community is closest to the event as possible. We've already heard today, again, some examples of things that people can raise, and we've got a by-election coming up. So look, please support this. If you want to increase voter turnout, to say that things have improved, it went up from 33% in my ward to 34%, 1%, 65% of people did not vote, of eligible voters. That is completely unacceptable, and we should not just continue to just think that that's okay and that we're doing a good job. We have to improve, and I'm not coming up with what the solutions are, but I'm absolutely saying we should talk to our community about things that we may be able to do that would help, and I can't see why anyone would vote against doing that.
Thank you. So I have a mover and a seconder for this amendment. I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. All those against?
I think you're going to need a division.
I think we need a division, or we not. This is just for Yanni's bit.
So this is just for the amendment number 2. Councillor Keown. Yes. Councillor McLennan.
Abstain.
Councillor McDonald.
No.
Councillor Henstock. No. Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett.
No.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Yes.
Councillor Coker. Yes. Councillor Fields.
No.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
The Mayor.
No.
Councillor Templeton. Yes. Councillor Barber. Deputy Mayor Cotter.
Abstention.
Councillor Johansson.
Yes.
Councillor Donovan. Yes. And Councillor Goff.
No.
1, 2, 3,
We've done the
4,
numbers.
5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against and 2 abstentions.
So it's carried.
Carried.
That's carried. So now we vote.
Just to receive.
So we now vote to receive. Yeah. So that was moved by Pauline and seconded by Sam. So all those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. Carried. Right. I want to have a break at 11, but depending on how this next one might be a bit